Okay, today we have a really special inner healing interview, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Corinna Kazdin is someone I've known for years and years and years. She
Thank
currently
you.
works at, it's a nonprofit that helps women who are pregnant figure out what they should do. So there's a ton of resources that they've connected people with over the years, and there's a lot of cool God stories that has come out of their organization. Before that, she's been in ministry. She was a co-pastor. She's done a lot of ministry and speaking engagements, and she actually has a book, which I will link to you guys in the show notes. Her book is all about her life and some of the things that God has walked with her through, and she's going to be sharing some of that stuff with us today. Now, as far as her other career, she was actually educated in the Philippines, came over here and was a pharmaceutical rep for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
a
why don't
lot
you
of
just
things.
start off today telling us a little about yourself, including your family and your background?
Oh, yeah, of
Okay.
course. Okay, so I was born and raised in the Philippines. I came here when I was 24 years old as a single mother. And that's actually the whole reason why I came here, because if you're a single mother in the Philippines, that's not a place to raise a child. It's almost like I'm going to make her life exactly what my life was. Because when well, in my generation, I don't know now, I'm a baby boomer, as you know. So back in the day, it was very conservative, and my whole family's very Catholic, very conservative. So to get pregnant, if you get pregnant there and you're not married, you only have two ways to go. You either become a mistress forever to whoever, or you're basically a scorned woman. Then, as a matter of fact, when my child was born, the birth certificate says her name, and then it says illegitimate daughter. So you're marked. The day you're out in this world, you're marked. So when after I gave birth, that's when I decided, I thought I have to do whatever it takes to get here to give her a better life. But I had a very traumatic, difficult childhood. But if I had to do it over again, I probably would, just because of the favor God has given me with, helping people, especially really in every part of my life, from my childhood to teenage years to adulthood and way into a marriage that was broken as well. So you could say I've been around the block of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have an amazing daughter who is about pretty much
She
my age.
is.
Yeah.
And I met you we when we were a church plant. I think I met you through Dale, my son-in-law, right? And then you were closer actually to the person that I co-pastored with, let's just say my ex-husband. You're friends with him, but then we got close when you started doing our worship with Dale at the church. So that was awesome. And then we've been close forever. What is that, 20 years?
Yep. 20
I think
years.
it's 20 years. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You were a baby then.
I was.
And you know what was awesome about that is that I think one of the reasons we were very close was, I get emotional. I hate it. Just watching God heal you. That was like the most amazing thing to me, because when you were going through that, I had all the faith in God, but just looking at how frail you were, I would always go to a place where I would beg God and just to make sure you lived, because from the eyes, from what we can see, it looks like you won't. It was so bad, but God had other plans for you. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of around 2009, 2010. I was
Yeah.
skinny and pale and shaky and had all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember
Yeah.
our church
Excuse
family
me.
just praying for me and exercising our faith. We were a little church plant, but we were,
Yeah, we were.
people of prayer.
Well, in the beginning, it was a spirit-filled church. I mean, God was there. I mean, we were so little, but we grew so fast. You know, that just remind me of that verse where the Spirit of the Lord is. There's freedom, right? There's liberty, and it was just a great church. And too bad it's no more. But He brought a lot of healing from that church, and you
Yeah,
were one of them.
yeah, it's true. He'll work wherever you ask him to work, whether there's perfect administration and functionality going on or not. So,
Yeah, 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 right. But God,
yeah.
yes, yeah.
So take us back a little more. You said you had a hard childhood. What did that look like for you, and how did you end up finding yourself pregnant and so young?
Oh, so I was, well, I grew up with an alcoholic mother. She was alcoholic from the time I was 8 years old, and then she got saved when I was 30, and she didn't go to AA or anything. She just completely stopped drinking. So, and I was praying for that since I was a little girl. My dad, he was angry at me because when he had asked me and my sister to pick who to go to with, I picked my mom, and I was 8 years old back then. And I picked her because I thought, well, my dad had the money, and and my sister wanted to go with him. So I thought, oh my gosh, my mom will be really alone and she would be really sad. And so I thought, well, I'll go with mom. But apparently, because I picked my mom, my dad hated me for it. And he did tell me. He said, you'll regret your decision. And so he did. He made sure that I did. So I suffered physical physical abuse, like being beaten, verbal abuse, words spoken to me that would crush a little person. And it did crush me, but I kind of learned my own strength. It's funny because now I think about it, you know, life and death is in the power of tongues, right? And he would speak things over me like, you will never amount to anything, you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're not my daughter, stuff like that. And it would be like almost every day. So if I went to his mom's house, I'm there for the summer to see all my cousins and my sister, and I love going there because I get to play. But every day when I see his car coming, the first thing he'll do when he gets out of the car is call me from playing outside. He'll make me stand right in front of me, and then he would berate me. And he would look me down too, like he'll look at me from head to toe, and then he'll start saying what he wants to say. So earlier on, I would cry because it hurts. I was a little girl. But then after a while, I thought, I bet if I don't cry, he'll stop faster. Because for some reason, as a kid, I realized I think he enjoys making me cry. So I thought, I'll show you, you're not gonna make me cry. So towards like the last few times, and I think that's probably why he stopped, because I I got to this place where when I'd see his car, I'd tell my playmates, give me 10 minutes, I'll be right back. And sure enough, I'll go in there, he'll do his thing, and then I would tell myself, don't listen to him, don't cry, act like you don't care, and I would do that. And so I think he got tired of it because I learned how to do that. The sad part is that growing up, I was so good at that, and it becomes a problem too, you know? So then I ran away from home. Well, first I tried to kill myself, really. The first time was I was 9 years old. And then the second time was, I think, 11. But God had other plans for me, so I'm here. Because the pills I took, the first, when I was 9 years old, the only thing I knew that could possibly kill me, because I was 9, was, a, the spray that you kill bugs?
Like a
It's
pesticide?
liquid. Yeah, it's a pesticide.
Yeah.
It's liquid. So in the Philippines, there's like a container you buy, and you pour the pesticide, and then you spray it, and it kills all the cockroach, whatever bugs it is. Like the raid that we have here. Well, I chugged a big thing. I could have sworn I should have been dead, but I didn't. It's like all that happened to me was I was in the bathroom all the time. And then I didn't. And I remember I would pray and I would say, God, I know you love children. And I'm 9, so I think I'm considered a child. And if you really love me, you'll get me out of here. Why don't you take me? Like, I've had this death. Like, I wanted to not be there because I felt like nobody wanted me there anyway. So after that, I don't see my mom, I don't see my dad because my mom gave me to my grandma. So I'd skip school a lot.
So did she end
And
up giving you to her mom or to?
her mom. Yeah, my sister is grew up in my dad's mom's house, but also with my dad. He loved his mom, so he's a mommy's boy. He's the baby. She loved him. So my sister automatically, of course, becomes the favorite. Well, first of all, she's the firstborn, but in fairness to her, she's such a good kid. She'd probably be my favorite too if I was her mom. So a lot of that is, I was angry. I never had friends. I'll go to school. But amazingly, I have this self-esteem. I was in dance. Nobody ever knew I would win contests because nobody came. But it was like I'd be in dance, I'd be in sports, and I was in a play, which a lot of schools paid to come. So it's crazy. But at home, it's just a really different. Like nobody cares. I grew up being seen but not heard. Like I'm just there. But I know my grandma loved me, but she was also alcoholic. I didn't actually know that until I was older. Needless to say, struggling to go to school. I would sneak school, but I would still come to school. And the other thing I was amazing is that I would skip school, but when it comes to testing and stuff, I do really well. I like cramming, so I'd study 2 nights before. I won't sleep. I'll stay up all night, and then I would do really well on my test. So I met this man, my daughter's biological father, when I was 19 years old, and he had said that he was a widow. And I'm so sorry. I'm skipping. I was actually raped when I was 13 years old because I was trying to look for my mom, and I ended up in a place where I shouldn't have been. And I think I not just raped, but I was abducted because a gun was on my side. So I got into the car, and that happened. And so when a woman is raped, a child is raped, you don't have. Not only that nobody wants you, now you're damaged goods. In the Philippines, that's even worse, right? So I don't know, Filipinos are not really bad, so I keep saying Philippines, but it's just that our culture back then when I was at my age, nobody talked about stuff like that. You don't talk about things like that. So I'm sure a lot of stuff is happening to a lot of people, but nobody's saying anything. And you dare not say anything because it brings shame to the family. But praise God, I didn't get pregnant when I was raped because I don't know. I think my life would have been so different, and I don't even know what I would have done. So fast forward, when I was 19, I met my daughter's biological father, and he's a really nice guy. And he said he was a widow and he has children, and I really liked him. And now, of course, I realized when I got older, the reason why I loved him is because he was so much like my dad, and they were just identical, like in vices and the way they are, the way he makes me laugh, and it's just funny. So I loved him. And then 2 years after, so when you're in the military in the Philippines, you you can live, you live in a base, right? In one of the bases. But when you're assigned permanently to another base, then you have no choice. You have to bring all your family back to the base where you're at. Well, that was the reason why I never saw any families, because they were living in a different base. But when he was transferred to this other base, he had to bring all of them. Then he had to tell me. But, I was already pregnant. What am I going to do? But I always thought, I hated that my dad had another woman, not understanding and realizing why he did. And it's not that it's okay that he had one, but there was a reason. There was something going on with their relationship with him and my mom that I didn't know about. So I was angry at the woman my dad was with, and I was angry at my dad because I thought he left my mom. But it was like there was this whole story about it. One day I'll probably write about it. But so I said, and I would still pray, and I was full on praying the rosary. So the more sins I committed, I think there was one time I prayed seven mysteries of the rosary in a day. Like I would pray the whole rosary for 7 times, because I could not unpunish, like I could not punish myself enough for everything that was happening in my life. But now, of course, I have a child and I have to live for this child. So what I did is I was having these conversations with God, bargaining. I was like, Lord, I know I'm doing something wrong. I know he's married, but I promise I will never interfere with his family. I will just take whatever I could get, and I would never cause a problem. I'm really sorry. So that was my daily life. There's a church in the Philippines. It's Baclaran Church, where it's huge. It's really more of a cathedral. And you'd go there, and there's the Virgin Mary there, and I would walk from the doorstep, which is long, on my knees to the altar, praying the rosary. And that's how you kind of do your penance and you do your petition. So I would do that. And I was at God to forgive me. And then I started praying, please help me get out of here. I need to give my daughter a better future. I can't stay here. So fast forward, I met this man that said, if you pay me, I can get you in the States to live there with your daughter. And it was back then, that was 1988. That's like $5,000 per person. So that's $10,000 for me. And luckily, I was saving money because my whole goal was to leave the biological father of my daughter. So I said, okay, I have money. And also, the one thing my dad did for us is he petitioned for us. When I was 12 years old and my sister was 13, he legally petitioned for us because he's lived here. After a while, he moved here. We have this pending petition, but we have to be in the Philippines to wait it out. So that's like 10 years. And my daughter was getting older, and I figured I have to get her out of here before she goes to school. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So then I did. I paid him, they called him the coyote. And I went to the airport, sold everything, asked my best friend to watch my daughter. and then I'll pick her up. Because he said, if you successfully go in, your daughter will follow. And so my best friend's supposed to bring her in here. So I said, okay. And I was walking at the airport, and he said, you should dress up like you're really rich and you can afford to travel. But of course, I am looking at myself thinking, okay, I was like 24. I was only 109 pounds and like really, I looked like a little girl. And I had my hair in bouffant because I thought that's what rich people look like. So, all dressed up. I probably looked like a little girl playing an adult, I think, because I had jewelries. And anyway, I was intercepted. Long story short, I was interrogated for 24 hours. And they were asking me to give them the lead who the guy is, because they said, we've been following this case for 5 years. We haven't had a break. And he said, now you're here. So you either tell us who it is or you go to jail.
And this is on the U.S. side?
No, that's in the Philippines. I didn't even
you were in the airport.
I was intercepted at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't even crossed anywhere. I was just right there. So someone tipped me off. Eventually, I found out. Somebody told the immigration so basically tipped me off. So they were already looking for me. So I was in that office, and I remember this general. He was a really nice guy. The U.S. immigration officers were there. And they were in my book. They actually came to book signing and talked to the audience, because the audience was asking them questions. That was amazing. I love it. They were there, and they were tough. They try to intimidate you. And I was very scared. But remember, my dad taught me how not to look scared and how not to look affected. So I was very good at it. I didn't look scared. But in my mind and in my heart, I said, I can't give this guy's name up, because he's not going to send me back. Because he told me, if you get caught, don't say anything. In 2 months, I'll resend you. That was my guarantee. So I'm not going to give that up, because I'm $10,000 out already. And I saw it as my last chance. So the general said, why don't you help them so you don't go to jail? He said, do you want to go to jail? I said, no. And I said to him, can I speak to you alone? So he sent the immigration out, and I told him my situation. And I said, look, I want to do give a better life for my daughter. And if I give them the guy, I would lose all my money. I would lose the only chance I have for my daughter, and she'll be just like me. I said, I can't do it. So then he said, why don't you work with them? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, why don't you ask them if, they'll, I don't know, work with you? And then I thought about it, and I said, well, I'll give them the guy if they let me live in the States legally. And I said, well, tell them that. So then the 2 immigration officers came, and they were talking to me. And this particular guy, the officer, in the book, I called him Foreman, but that's not his real name. So in my book, the only real name is me. Every name I changed. Anyway, I called him Foreman, so we'll call him Foreman. So Foreman was like this tough guy. He's like, look at me. He's going, do you know that you're going to be in jail? And just threatening me. And I said, well, what if I give you the guy in exchange for you allowing me to live there legally so that I could be with my daughter and I can give her a better future? That's why I was leaving. And she said, you think you can do that? I said, yeah. He said, well, what can you get us? And I said, well, what do you need? He said, well, we need documentations. We need things that prove that he's doing this. So paperwork, all that, everything. I said, okay, I can do it. He said, okay, well, I'll send you home and you start tomorrow. No, he said, rest for a day and then we'll start the next day. And I said, okay. Then he got up and I said, wait a minute, don't we have a paperwork to sign? Aren't you gonna draft this whole thing? So we have a contract. Are you just gonna make me work this and not give me anything? And then he stopped, and I think he didn't realize that I was smart enough to figure, dude, we got to have a contract. So he disappeared for a while. He said, I'll draw the paperwork and then we'll sign it. I said, I want to sign it here because General was there. He said, okay. So it took even longer. I was there longer. And then we signed it, and the General was there, and I had a copy, and I think I have a copy. And then he said, okay. So I came home and I saw Mary again. I thought that was the last time I would ever see her. It was just, I was just dying inside. I've never been away from her ever since she was born, ever. And I didn't work, so I was raising her. So the day after, I had to leave again, and then you have to say goodbye again. I've never been on an airplane. Anyway, my whole life there started that way. When I came here, I have to go in hiding. I had to hide while they were trying to gather all the information. I had to wear wires. I have to record conversations. And back then, there's no AirPods. There's no iPhone, so I had to wear this big hot. It was this big in your back. And then the wire was in my bra, but it was so hot, the back, that at one point I had to ask them to stop, pull over. I had to lie because I was in the Crook's car, and I said, I have to go to the bathroom. So I ran to the bathroom, and nobody was there. And then I see this woman, and she says, hey, we have a common friend. And I said, well, who's that? And then she said, it's Foreman. And I said, oh my gosh, please take this microphone away from me. And my back was burned, and his car was Mercedes-Benz and it's leather. So I knew it was just a matter of time to burn that, and he would kill me. I knew he would kill me because the crook was an ex-military in the Philippines. But by the grace of God, I got away with all that stuff. I mean, there's so much detail. Eventually, I had to, when the case was done and they were able to put him away, I was able to stay in the States legally for 5 years. And they gave me a certificate of, thank you, because I guess, like I said, it's been 5 years. And they finally cracked the case. And then I had my job. But for the first 5 years, I had to tell the owner of the company, at some point, at any given time, they might call me to work for them. And I can't say no, because I have to work for them so that I could stay here legally while I'm waiting for my papers, my green card. So, and boy, was I called. Sometimes I was at work and they'll be like, we need you to fly to Vegas tomorrow. We need you to translate for us. So just immigration work I would do for them. And then, so when then I met my ex-husband, and when we got married, he said, why are you still working for them? You're married to me now. Why don't you just I'll petition for you. I said, oh no, there's no way. Number one, I risked my life for this. Number two, I want to get it from my dad. I don't want to get it from anybody else but my dad. And then it would defeat the whole purpose of why I almost killed myself here. Because trust me, the crook found me and my daughter, and we had to make a run for it. And so I said no. So I waited another, just the whole 5 years. And then when I got my green card, I was so happy.
So what's the timeline?
Yes, I'm free.
So what's the timeline on this? So your dad moves to the U.S. in what year?
I think he moved here because, remember, he didn't talk to me at all. So I think he moved when I was 10 or 11.
And then you put your feet on U.S. soil when you're 20?
1924, because I came here in November of 1988.
Okay. But then you said the coyote chased you down on U.S. soil, so how did he get
Yeah,
here?
because, okay, I'm so sorry. I failed to say that, to tell you that. So, this is a big organization. They have one in the Philippines, and the main guy is here in the States.
So the main guy was after you once you
Uh-huh.
got here.
Yeah, so he lived here. He's always lived here. And then so that's how they were very effective, because one guy in the Philippines and one guy here. So when they had to take them down, I think it was 2 in the morning, because they have to do it simultaneously. When it's morning, it's early in the morning there, and it's early in the morning here.
And then I had another question about before that. You said you were raising Mary in the Philippines the first
Yeah.
4 years of her life. You weren't really working because you were a full-time mom. So you also said you were saving money. Was that just money from her dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So her dad, the one thing is he did provide. So that I was grateful for, because she didn't have to go to a nanny. I didn't have to work. I was with her. And I was a nervous mom. I was very scared about a lot of things. I think because of my childhood. So I'm overboard protective, like overprotective. I didn't trust the babysitter. I didn't want my mom to touch her, because when she would visit, she would smell like alcohol, and she wasn't sober yet. So if she's not sober, I told her, I'm sorry, you can't come here. I can't have her breathing your alcohol. I said, but if you're sober, you can come visit. So I was very strict about stuff like that. I didn't see my dad for 17 years, nor talk to him.
So you got the green card from him, so he must have signed something, but
He
you
did,
didn't really
yeah.
have a relationship.
No, no. And I'm just grateful that even if we didn't, he still, that's one thing, just now at this time of my life, I've actually, my mom and my dad, we're very close. I've forgiven everything. I don't even look back. Like, I tell the story about them, but it doesn't hurt me anymore. Like, there's no, God completely healed me from that. And I tried, when I wrote my book, I tried really hard to just focus on the truth I didn't want them to come out as, oh, these are monster parents, because they're not. Because I know that there was a reason why my mom turned to alcohol. There was a reason why my dad was like that. They were not born that way. And, as a believer, we know that. We were born in the image of God. We're okay, right? But then life happens and it just messes us up, and we do different things to mend it. And for her, that was it. But no, we're good. And my dad and I are good. And my dad's actually, I'm a lot like my dad, not my mom. I think my sister and I are a lot like my dad more than my mom, because my dad is when he loves you, he loves you. Like, he's there for you. And again, as an example, it's like, even when he was mad at me, he continued the petition. He didn't say, just her sister, I'm not getting her. So, but matter of fact, the person that bought my first bra is my dad. That's not a guy's job, really. And I mean, of course, right? You're a girl, it should be your mother, but it was my dad. He was the one that's always in school. He was the one that paid for school. Like, he didn't communicate with me, but he would pay for my tuition fee. He would send money every week to buy shoes and bags and whatever I need every school year. He did that. So,
Do you think, looking back, that your dad is a narcissist?
my ex is, and that's how I can differentiate the two. I never understood what a narcissist is. I mean, I know it by whatever association, but I really understood it after my ex. I lived 23 years with him. So I can safely say I don't think my dad is. I don't think he is, but I think my dad is very angry. He doesn't forgive. He doesn't know. Once he tells you you're done, you're done. There's nothing you can do. You can't earn it back. You can't do anything. I think he's just, I think now, because I'm older, he realized what happened to him and me, and so he's more sorry than anything. Because, we talk about like very deep, serious things now, which is really fun. We get to know him a little bit more.
Do you think Mary's biological father was a narcissist?
Oh, absolutely.
So if we're looking at the timeline, you meet your first husband when you're 27 or 26, or?
My daughter was nine, turning 10 when I married him.
Okay.
Or what?
So you get married towards the end of your 5-year green card wait.
Yes. Like, I think I'm on my last stretch, like I have 1 year maybe.
Yeah, 1 year left on the green card thing.
Yeah.
You get married, and do you feel like as far as being a Christian, like, do you feel like you've always been a Christian? You've always followed God? I mean, you mentioned you already prayed, you went to church, you always talked to God in your heart. Was there a time where you quote unquote got saved, or was it just a continuation of a relationship?
Oh, yeah. I got saved before I got married, and I think I was 27 then.
Okay.
Mary and I got saved. We got baptized together, actually. I got saved at the Valley Vineyard Church. And that was a funny thing for me, because when you're Catholic and you go to a church, and they call them the Holy Roller Church, like they walk down the aisle, they go back and forth and they dance. I was freaked out. Because as a Catholic, everything is organized. You kneel, you sit, you stand, you don't talk, you're quiet. But this was, there was a band, people were singing, and they were running up and down the aisle. They spoke in tongues. And I mean, really, the first time I attended the church, I was like, oh my God, where am I? Like, I really was scared. What saved me, though, was not his teaching. It was for the first time in my life, I saw the lyrics of Amazing Grace, and I was reading it, and I just started crying. And I remember Sherry, she says, oh, honey, she says to me, she's a lot older than me. She says, oh, honey, that's just the Holy Spirit. And I had no idea what she was talking about back then. But I was like, why can't I stop crying? Like, I couldn't understand. My whole body was shaking, and I was crying. And she said, no, it's, and that day, the pastor asked for an altar call. And so it wasn't like me to just go up there back then. But I did, because he said, if you want to receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, come up here and we'll pray for you. So I did. And then I think 2 weeks after, we got baptized.
Wow.
So yes, I got saved.
How did you get connected with that Vineyard Church?
It's a funny story. I met this guy. When I was a club. When we were younger, there's 6 of us. That's why I like that thing, Friends, because that reminded me of us. And we would all go out every Friday. And I didn't go out on weekends because that was for Mary. So Friday, I always go out. And this guy had like the best line. He was so good looking too. He looked like Rod Stewart when Rod was young. And he gave me his ID. This was his line. He comes to me, he gives me his ID, and he says, look, here's my ID. Hold on to it. And I just want you to know I'm not a bad person, but I just think you're really pretty and I would like to go out with you. And I was like, wow, I've never heard that line before. So we started talking. Anyway, during the course of the conversation, he was like, do you go to church? But this was actually a time of my life, this is before I got saved, that I was mad at God. I was mad at God for 3 years. I didn't talk to God for 3 years. And I remember saying goodbye to him at a Catholic church. I went to the Catholic church and I said, I know you're up there. And I know you are there. And I'm sure you love people, but just not me. And I said, because if you love me, look at me and look at my life. To this day, I'm still here. So I said, I'm leaving. This is the last time I'm coming here. I told him, and if you really love me or if you want me back, then you're just going to have to bring me back because I'm done. And that was the last time I went to that Catholic church. It was on Colorado Boulevard here in LA. And I left, and then 3 years, every time I would think about him, I would disregard it. It's like, because imagine growing up with him my entire life. Like, I was going to church since I was like born, I think. So it was difficult. It was a challenge for me to not acknowledge his presence, but it was something I worked really hard at. But then I met that guy. Fast forward, I met that guy, and he asked me, do you go to church? I was like, yeah. Well, I didn't. I lied just because I have a crush on him, so I wanted to go out with him. So I was like, oh, yeah, I go to church. He said, well, do you want to go to church with me and my mom? And I said, sure. Where is it? So he said, well, we go to the Valley Vineyard. So I said, okay. So, so Sunday, Mary and I went. And we went to church, and so Sherry's his mother. And I didn't know this in the beginning, of course. So his mother and him and I were there, and Mary was in the children's class. So that's the first shock I had, like that I talked about. And then the second Sunday I came, he wasn't there. So I said to his mom, where's Phil? And maybe the third Sunday, I said, where's Phil? And she says, he didn't tell you, did he? I said, tell me what? She said, Corinne, she said, Phil is a recovering alcoholic. She says, sometimes he falls off the wagon, and when he does, I kick him out of my house. He's my only son, she says, but I'm not going to enable him, so I don't know where he is. And I was like, oh, man, in my head, like, again. So that wasn't a hard decision for me, of course, because I've been there, done that. I know what that's like and what that looks like. So it's like, yeah, no. But I continued to go to church.
So that was the end of your crush on Phil.
Yes. Well, we were friends for a little bit, but I think it was, this is funny. You would think, you know, I'm 62, right? So back then I was young, so you would think, I understand things now. It's like, you would think that the reason why you won't want to be with them is because, yeah, okay, you had that experience with your mother, with your life. But the funny thing is, that's very familiar to you. So you're attracted to it. Well, and, you know, of course, the fact that he's good looking, and I was really young. So you go back to it because it's the dance that you know the steps to, is what I'm trying to say. Normal relationship, normal people was weird to me. Like, I don't know how to talk to them. I can't relate to them because and at times I think not at times, but I think 90% of the time when people are nice or being kind, I'm reading into what they're doing or saying, because you have to remember that the last nice guy that did something for me, it ended up abducting me. Because this guy actually was a neighbor of my mom, and he would offer me pancakes all the time. I was 13. Of course I like pancakes. So and my whole life was quid pro quo. If you behave and you're nice, then you get to stay here. And if you're not nice, then you don't get to stay. So I don't understand that thing. But verbal abuse or alcoholism, I know that. I know how to dance that. So that's not, like, to me, it's like, I'm up for the challenge. I get it. But the reason why we're not together is really not more about me, but more about my child. I'm not going to subject Mary to living my life all over again. Like, that's why I took her out of there. I'm not going to bring it here, you know.
Yeah.
But in fairness to Phil, when he's sober, I think he's one of the most wonderful people I've ever known. Very kind. And he died. He OD'd on heroin. And his mom is amazing. She was a recovering alcoholic. She actually conceived him alcoholic, but then she went to AA. And what she does is she goes to AA still. Like, she's been going to AA forever when she was alive. Then she would take people to church. She was like a funnel of people getting saved. So when she passed away, Mary and I, we went to Phil's funeral, we went to Sherry's funeral, and we went to Sherry's funeral. The youngest person that spoke was a kid. She was 12. She says, "Sherry, you're my best friend because you gave me my mom back." It was just, that was like so emotional. Yeah, being there. She lived the last years of her life well.
So you were mad at God for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You told him he'd have to bring you back. Then he sends Phil and Cheryl to bring you back, basically.
Yeah.
Go to Vineyard,
Yes.
Valley Vineyard.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, is that when you met your first husband?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel like there was a lot of familiar dysfunction there too?
Yeah, oh yeah. You always attract that when you're not healed. You know, I didn't know. He was almost like a recluse, really, unless he had to go out. For sure, he had at least two personalities that I've experienced. And towards the end of the marriage, I kind of saw a third one, which was the scary one. You know, it was kind of like a demonic presence. Yeah.
So at first you're meeting this more kind personality. He adopts Mary at some point, right?
Yeah.
He starts a church at some point.
Yeah. And then he introduced himself to me. Well, the problem was I caused all my problem anyway, because I always take matters into my hands. Had I only listened to God, I'd probably be, I'd probably have skipped that, but oh well. God always finds ways to use our errors to benefit other people. So when I met him, I wasn't looking for love. I was looking for a father for my daughter. And he had to be a Christian. So here's one good lesson. When you're a baby Christian, you don't marry, you don't get into a relationship because you don't know anything. You really don't. It's like you think the word "I'm a Christian" means everything. It doesn't. It really doesn't. I don't even like to say the word anymore because it just misrepresents the entire Christian world. So my goal was just, he has to be a Christian. And so I met him, and he said he was a Christian and he was a youth pastor. So I was like, wow, this is great. He has no child, and he's single. And later on, by the way, I found out he was married before me. But I didn't find that out until after we were already married. So that's how I do not do my due diligence. By the way, there's a book that's called Never Go Back. That is an amazing book because it talks about do your due diligence, which I didn't do, of course, obviously. So I married him for that reason. My I think that the one thing too that I credit my grandma for is that even if I was raped, even if my life was that way, I was never the person that would sleep around. It just it didn't feel right to me morally, and I think it does have a lot to do with my relationship with him. I feel like I don't know. So because I don't want to sleep with him without being married, we had to marry. So we really just dated 1 year and then we got married. I didn't know anything about him. I was just really focused on Mary. But the good things that came out of that was that he, in the beginning, I think it would be unfair to say that, I was with him for 23 years and there was nothing good about him. Of course there were. He has a side that was really great. He helped me. When he married me, I had Mary, and then my niece and my nephew lived with us for 5 years because I wanted to help my sister because I came here before her. So when her paperwork finally came, she had just 2 kids, and it was hard to start from a different country to come here. She has to adjust, and so I said, "We'll take care of them." And my ex-husband said, "Okay." So that's great. But there were also stuff that happened that it shouldn't have happened. And so I can't even explain all that because that's the thing that breaks my heart to this day because I cannot undo that. But, I have to trust and continue to pray that God would heal that part. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing I can do. So I have to move on. So then I think we were married 5 years. Then we ended up, the first job he looked for was to be a pastor. So he was actually a pastor. The second year we were married, he became the senior pastor of a Methodist church. And then from there, he was hired as a youth pastor at Corinna Church. And then from there, he wanted to plant a church. So that's where our church came.
And that's where I met
from.
y'all. I ended up
That's
at that
where
church.
I met you. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think if I were to summarize my experience with him, it's like he did have a gift for ministry and a heart for ministry, but he had some unhealed things in his heart. And he shared with me and others. God was prompting him to dive into that, write about it, get that healing in that area. And then I didn't see the follow through there. So I didn't see that healing happen as thoroughly as it needed. And then he kind of devolved, like you said. He changed. And
how old were you when he shared? And I don't even, so let me ask you this. How old were you when he shared whatever he shared with you?
I was in my 20s.
You were very young, right?
Yeah, I was in my 20s, and looking back, I don't think that conversation should have happened that way, just because there was some bad boundaries involved in, me and him being by ourselves, him sharing something that had to do with other people abusing him when he was a kid in different ways, and it was almost like too intimate of a conversation.
Exactly.
And I know that he would do that. Looking back, I've gathered more information in hindsight that he would do that with young women. He would have conversations one-on-one that got too personal. And nowadays, now I know more about ministry boundaries. Because after y'all's church, I went into vocational ministry. And I unpacked a lot of this, the good and the bad that had happened with him. And, but yeah, he shared that the Lord was kind of nudging his heart to get a deeper healing from that and maybe write a book about it and be more public with it at some point. And then it just he never.
See, and I think, so that makes me angry right
Right.
now. It was part of the grooming.
Yeah.
I think he groomed young girls.
Yeah. I think with me, it wasn't going to get much further than that
No,
because
because you were street smart, like you knew. And when people like this, what happens is that they are more successful with women that are from broken homes, broken families. And so
it's almost like a unfair privilege that I didn't have that subconscious open door for further grooming. It's just I didn't come from a background where that would be a script that I was too familiar with. So
yeah. And I've even caught it so many times, but I've always thought of myself as I'm a street smart. A lot of stuff happened to me. I can tell, I know. Do you know that after the divorce, I realized how naive I was in that 23 years. There were so many things that was a red flag. I didn't even realize it. But, there were times where I remember there's one girl that was in the youth group, and she was tall. And when she would talk to him, they met eye to eye. And she was very, well built, I'll just say. He was way too close talking to her, like almost too close. So I had said something, and I actually said, I think you're talking to that girl way too close. She is almost in the same height as you, and I don't think that's appropriate. And I remember getting blasted for that, and how dare me, and it's that thing where they shift the blame to you, and you're jealous, and how dare you think about stuff like that. This is a youth ministry. I'm sorry, and I'm just grateful to God that you're okay. But that is not something. You just don't talk to people about stuff like that, period, or a person, unless they're in counseling, and you know what I mean? That just nothing of that is okay. None of that was okay.
If a pastor over me was to share something vulnerable and personal with me now, it would be a real quick clap back. Well, I hope you have a guy to talk to about that. I hope you have a male therapist to talk to about that. End of conversation.
Right. And if you really, I don't know, like what would be the reason why. And I now, of course, that was the modus operandi. It's like, This is how it worked. I didn't know this, but that's how it worked. And
no one knew. No one knew. He was pretty covert. I know you have to go, and I feel like we haven't even dove into like the inner healing, the inner workings of inner healing.
That is the best part.
It's the best part. So I wonder if we should do a part 2.
I'm here for you, Andrea. Anything for you.
So what if we do this? Let's tell the end of the life story up to this point, so that people get the whole storyline.
Okay.
Then in our next episode together, we can talk about how you and the Lord walked through healing, and how you went from kind of broken and not okay to more healed and whole in Christ. Because I think that'll be really advantageous to the listeners too. How did that look, and how can they do it too? And you know what? If my story is interesting, but the healing is not interesting, but it is healing. Yeah.
Because of how faithful. That's amazing.
Yeah, God is.
If I can make it, I think everybody can make it. So, yeah. So
you eventually have to divorce, and that was in 2018, right?
Yes, he left in 17.
Yeah.
Well, So he left in 2017, and I was waiting for 3 months because I was going to take him back. because I didn't want a divorce. And I actually thought it was all my fault, believe it or not. So it's like, I'm going to be a better wife. I won't work as hard and I won't get mad as much. So I was waiting until, of course, I found out. And when I found out that one thing, that is what the next day. So I found out today. The next day I went to Pasadena court and I filed for divorce.
And you found out, basically, long story short, there was another relationship happening.
There's a lot of other stuff happening behind my back for years. 4 years, not just 1 year, 2 years. It was going on for years.
So you get divorced. That's finalized in 2019?
No, in 3 months.
Oh, it was a quick. Okay.
Well, because I had nothing, I mean, he also took what I have, so.
So you didn't go through the whole lawyer, court, blah.
No! This is another thing. This is a God provision for me because I didn't have money, and when I went to Pasadena court, I asked if there was a pro bono, and they said yes. They said on Tuesdays, they said first Tuesday of every month, once. I said, and I was thinking, okay, tomorrow's Tuesday. I was there at 5 o'clock in the morning. They said they take the first 3. I got in.
Wow.
Yeah. So they said the divorce will be finalized in 6 to 8 months, but I actually got a divorce paper in 3 months and it said you can't get married until November. But I was already divorced. So that was painful, by the way, even if I was the one filed that and all that stuff. So we can talk about it later.
That's a huge grief process, I'm sure.
It's like an ending. Oh, and what happened after that that was of all my life, part of my life that I have ever felt God so close, so always there, was that whole journey of healing. Because God told me, you don't date, you don't talk to anybody, especially if they've been divorced, because they will be bitter. You stay with me for that whole year. So, and I think he wanted me to heal correctly. That's why. I think if I didn't follow that, it's probably a different story,
I saw you in 2019. I was subbing at Dale's new church. And I felt like your spirit had just been through the ringer.
Yeah.
And that the Lord was like basically the Lord had taken over and you were just surrendered to God. And it was like at that point in your life, the angels were just holding you up on each side.
Yeah.
And you were just moving forward
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I think we started crying when we saw each other.
Yeah. Yes. I think because, we always read the Bible and we always have this favorite verses that we want. And I have read Philippians 4:13 over and over, right? 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We all say that as a believer, right? But when I was going through my divorce, that was what prevented me from having my panic attacks, because I developed anxiety and panic attacks, which I have never experienced in my life. Even when I was going through the INS stuff, I didn't know what that was. I thought I was having a heart attack. And the what is that? The footprints in the sand. I love that thing, always have, but it was never so clear to me that I literally could see it and feel it, that he was carrying me, because it was the only way I was going to survive that. It was, oh man, divorce is death. That is what I can equate divorce. Good or bad reason, it doesn't matter. Divorce is like death. It's like going through a death. Something died, and it did die. So yeah, but that was my favorite part of my life, that I could look back and just know, like, I know if I knew God was real, that solidified it even more. That I know, and I can't function and every day without talking to Him at all anymore. It's just my life has become different. I still go to church. Do I believe in churches? Absolutely. Do I believe in pastors? Not as 100% as I used to be. I think I would say I'm a little bit more cautious. I'm not saying they're bad people, but of course, I now have my personal reservations of, okay, I think I'm able to see a healthy pastor, and ones that you can't, because you're not healed. You can't be there, or you're going to take these people down. Because I think that was the one of the part that was, divorce is like, it just annihilates everyone in the way. One of those are the people that was coming to our church, because some of them stopped going to church because they're probably going there. Well, if you can't make it, how can I make it? Oh, I thought he's like this, but look at that.
Yeah, it can be
So
devastating to people's faith, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And the main
So
thing of our faith is not church. The
nope.
main part of our faith is secret, one-to-one interaction with God, and nothing can replace that. So we have to make that our priority every day.
Yeah.
So fast forward to, I guess, a few years after that, your now husband.
Well, Steve, believe it or not, he was never a practicing Jew, but his father was a Jew. So, but he was my very first boyfriend when I came to the States. Very first. And I loved him. I was in love with him. But I was a year, I'm not really, I'm 8 months older than him. And when we met, he just graduated from Miami. He was a punter at the Hurricane. And he just wasn't ready. But the one thing I so love about him, and I still do, is he's very honest. He knows his limitations, and he was very honest with me. He said, "Look, I'm not there. I'm not ready. I just started a job." You know what I mean? It's like a night. So he's very honest, and so even when we broke up, we're in the group of six. Even when we broke up, he and I and the six of us were all still friends to this day. We're still friends. I went to his dad's wake, and like, I'm always involved in their family because we just remain friends. As a matter of fact, my ex knows about him because I told him, because I don't want to lie about stuff. So my ex knows my past, my present, and my future. I never hid anything from him. So he knew about Steve. And so when his mom passed away, and we had to go to the wake, I was still married. He met him. I think he met him twice. So, but yeah, so God had given me, there's so much to say about Steve, but I never thought I would end up marrying this guy, because I had stereotyped him, I mean, I forgot people grow and they change. And I thought he was just still the Steve before. So I tell you, if anybody works hard to be with me, he probably is the hardest working man I've ever met in my life. Because I think he has so much to prove to me that he wasn't that guy anymore. So, but that's a fun love story there. So,
What year did you start dating?
at the end of my hibernation, at the end of 2019.
So like right before COVID hit?
Yes. And here's the thing. He was living, because he was never a guy that would marry. He didn't like marriage. So he was living with a girl for 15 years, his girlfriend. She passed away. She had cancer. The same year, my ex left, but just a different month. But we never talked because he was doing his thing, and he could see from the group text me, "Hey, Corinna, you're single, let's go out." And I just kept saying, "No, I can't. So I didn't. But when I was better, I knew I was okay. And he was a really good boyfriend and husband, even to this day, because he's a guy that, because he knew the situation, I'm able to talk about it. Like, there will be triggers for me, right? So I'm so free to tell. And also because he's my best friend. Like, we're really good friends. Sometimes he calls me dude, he forgets. So he would say something and I'd say, please don't. It kind of triggers me, and I know it's not your fault, but it kind of jumps me right back to that place. And I know you didn't mean that. It's like, and he's so quick to say, I'm so sorry that I didn't mean that. That's not what I meant. I go, I know. I just wanted to make sure. And now he does the same thing. Like, we have codes. Like, we call ourselves the Team Kazdin. Because he's a sports dude, so I like sports too anyway. But, we always do things together, and we're very careful with each other's feelings. That, if there's something that would trigger him, he would say, instead of saying, "Hey, that triggers me," it's like, personal foul. Because in football, let's say you I don't know, you rough someone, roughing the passer, it's like personal foul. So sometimes when we don't even say personal foul, we just go.
I love that.
So we know, we're like, oops, sorry. We're very quick to apologize, but we're also very quick to say, okay, and then we move on. We don't say, it's okay, and then you still carry it with you, because that's not really sorry. That's like, yeah, whatever that was, it's not, you didn't forgive, because you can't move on, right? So yeah, we've been married I think we're going to be married 5 years. I'm not good at dates.
That's okay. Neither am I.
He knows, if you ask him, he'll know more than I do. Like, no. My daughter and her husband loves him, and the in-laws love him. So he's truly I think I'll summarize him like real in short. I never knew that I could be loved as much as he loved me, or with him, I feel like a woman. Like, I'm delicate, and it's just so nice, that I don't have to be tough. Like, I can cry and still be seen as, yeah, you're not a wuss or something. He's just, he's my equal. He's very kind, and he's very funny, very goofy, which is really nice, because life is hard without the comedy, right? It's as hard as it is. So, but yeah, he is a gift from God, because I never thought guys like him existed, because he's opposite what he was before. So it's just like, how do you change from this to that? But he learned too.
Do you guys pray together?
We do Bible study every night. And I love it, because when he became so we were still dating, and this was funny, because we were in the car, he doesn't know much. I was like, do you know Moses? He goes, yeah, Charleston Heston. I'm like, dude, no, really, the real Moses. Like, no, I don't. So we started going to church while we were dating, and he even said, how come you don't invite me to church? I go, if you want to go to church, you should go to church. Don't go because I asked you, because once you get what you think you're going to get, you're not going to go back. So I'm done with that. I said, you do your thing. So he would go to church where the kids were going. We will go there, but I'll make him sit a little far away from me. Because I didn't, I was like, just do your own walk. So it was amazing, because when I realized that he was really serious about wanting to get back together, I had asked God. See, my ex-husband, I never asked. I heard the Lord tell me, don't do this. And I thought it was my conscience. And he did it to me. He said it to me 3 times. But I was a baby Christian. I didn't know it was the Lord telling me. I thought I was just wigging out because it would be the first marriage in my life. So I was like, well, that's just me. Because they say, oh, every bride gets that.
Cold feet.
But that was God, yeah. God was telling me, don't do this, and I did. So, yeah, that's why I say, in retrospect, I brought everything to myself, because I was such a baby Christian, I didn't know. But for Steve, when I realized it was serious, I had a conversation with God, and I said, Lord, you know me, I don't want to get divorced again. I know his past. I don't know. Is this for me? If it's not, I'm begging you, please take him away from me. Because he has done that a lot of the times that I asked him. Well, after I prayed that, he actually got saved. Because I was very honest with him. I said, I cannot, I can't. When he asked me, he said, Corinne, why don't you and I start dating again? And I said, why don't we not? I said, because you like to party, I don't. And you don't believe in marriage, I do. Even if I got divorced, I still want to be married. I don't sleep around. I don't know if you do, but I won't. And I said to her, and here's the biggest thing I told him is, I can't imagine living my life with somebody that I can't talk to about God. That you would take my life away. I can't do that. If I married you and you're not saved, that would be my life. And I said, and I can't do it. He said, you don't know. People change. That's what he said. I was like, okay. And that's when he said, why do you not invite me to church? I said, hey, you want to go, you go. He started coming, and then after a while, there was an altar call. He raised his hand. And then he waited 2 more months, and he said, I think I want to get baptized. And I'm happy about all the decisions he made, because he knew I never coaxed or coerced him to do any of that, because I told him, I don't want a fake salvation. I can't. I've been there, done that. I can't do it again. And I don't want to get divorced. We got married, right? So we're already married. We had a big fight, like, I think it was a month after we were married. And I was angry. And I had forgotten what it's about. And he went into his passive aggressive mode, which we all do. And so did I. And when I was in my ex-marriage, whenever I would be upset, I would get my keys and I'll go run to my daughter's house and I'll sleep there. Sometimes I slept there for a week. I just would run away. That was my thing. I'm leaving. So I was so angry. He went to bed. He's like, well, I'm going to bed. And so he was in bed, and I was sitting in the bed, and I said, I'm leaving, like in my head. So I put on my shoes, and I put my clothes and I started putting on my shoes. And God said to me, and I knew it was God. He said, Corinna, if you walk out that door, you're going to suffer the consequence of whatever decision you make today. If you walk out that door, you're going to invite that in your life. It's up to you. And I knew it was God. So I sat there. And here's the funny thing. I sat there and I felt like the little girl I was when I was on a timeout and I wanted to play and my grandma wouldn't let me, and I would sit there and cry. I sobbed by the door and my keys in my hand. I wanted to go so bad because whenever things got difficult, I always ran away. I always ran away. That was my go-to. Things are bad. That's fine. I can leave. So I always leave. As a matter of fact, my ex once told me, you were never full in anyway. You're always 1 foot at the door. I never, thought about that. But that moment, I thought, that is true. I always have a plan A, B, and C in case B didn't work out. I always had something. So that was for the first time in my life, I'm going, oh my God, I can't leave. This is it. I have to stay. So I sat there for about 2 hours maybe, and then I went to bed and I went to sleep, cried myself to sleep really. The next day we made breakfast here in the house, and then I said to him, we're going to have to talk about this, or this is going to be a pattern in our life. And we need to figure out what to do when things like this happen. And so we did. So now we don't, when we have a disagreement, we talk it out, and then we move on. So, and I know that one of the reasons why that is because every night we do a Bible study together. So we read together. He reads and I explain.
I love it.
But amazing, because he would have questions that I'm like, I actually never thought about that. And which would require me to research and do stuff, which is really great because I'm learning too. Because you forget what you know, and then realize, I actually didn't know that. So it's good.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
I'll text you and we'll figure out when to hop back on.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for having me. Love you so much.
Love you too.
Okay, bye.